Good evening all. Thank you so much for joining me. This is going to be my fourth studio class here at the Resnick Education wing of Carnegie Hall, and today we're going to be focusing on legato, which was proposed to me by a student that we talk about legato for one of these classes. And I think it's a very interesting topic because, like so many terms we use in singing and in classical music, there can be so many different ideas about what it means, but it also seems sometimes to just be this elusive, mysterious thing. So what we're all going to try to do this evening for each other is to demystify legato. A coach friend once asked me to define legato, and off the top of my head what I said was, legato is an absence of discontinuity. And then I thought, that's a double negative, that's probably not the best way to think about it, but I've thought about it since then, and I actually think that that is a pretty good description of what legato is, because legato is continuity. But for us as expressive artists, I feel like continuity is our default, right? Thoughts are continuous, expression is continuous. And so if we are channeling our thoughts and our expressive impulses through our voices, then our vocal expression ideally will be continuous by default if something doesn't happen to mess it up. So, once again, I would like you to think about singing as being movement, right? A bunch of different kinds of interrelated forms of movement. Because if we can distill it down to things that we are actively doing, or maybe we're doing them unconsciously, but we can become aware of it and then change what we're doing, then we can make an adjustment to the movements that we're making, and we can sing the way that we want to. So, continuous movement, continuous singing. Let's just practice a couple of these elements that make up the movements of singing. I'd like you to all join me and just sustain a slow, steady hum and give yourself the experience of what continuous phonation feels like. So everybody breathe and as you continue to do this, just check in with your voice and feel, is it continuous? Does it feel slightly irregular? Sometimes when I'm sustaining on a note or a hum, I can kind of feel my heart beating a little bit. And that's just this sort of subtle fluctuation that feels like an interruption, but there's nothing we can do about that because our hearts beat continuously as well. Okay, so continuous phonation. If you've got continuous phonation, that's a big important ingredient for legato. And now just let's explore continuous airflow. I'd like you to get a good breath and then just release it on a slow, steady hiss. Breathe and so that's continuity with your airflow. Continuous phonation, continuous airflow, then we should be able to have continuous singing and continuous legato, right? No problem. Except there are a lot of things that we do when we're singing that can threaten to make our legato discontinuous. What are some of the things that can interrupt our singing?
Nerves.
Nerves. Okay, so you are very committed to what it is that you're going to be performing because thought is continuous and expression is continuous, and then you start having competing thoughts. Okay, so if you're thinking about, you're really committed to your character, but then you get distracted by other thoughts, discontinuity of thought can result in discontinuity in the body sensations that you're feeling that are affecting your breathing, and nerves can kind of kick in. And that can present a challenge for your legato. What else?
Tension.
What kind of tension?
Like jaw tension or tongue tension could really interrupt.
Okay, so let's so unintentional jaw or tongue tension, right? Tension, as I always say, is because I really want you guys to all think about singing as being movement. Movement happens when muscles tense. So there are the intentional tensions that we want to create, and then there are the unconscious tensions or the nervous tensions that might happen. And it's true if you maybe you've got like perfectly coordinated articulators, but your jaw seizes up on you a little bit, your tongue retracts, and then that's going to create some resistance that may create some interruptions for what you're doing with the continuity with your phonation and your airflow. What else? Words. All right. This is the biggest problem for many people, that they say, I can sing so beautifully and freely and consistently when I'm doing my exercises, and then all of a sudden there are lyrics and words and that messes everything up. So let's talk about that. Why would movements relating to words interrupt your legato? Any ideas?
Breaks the flow.
Does it have to break the flow?
Does it have to?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, but if it's to be legato, I mean, it should be continuous.
Yeah. Now the thing is, in some languages, like you're going to sing something for us in English today, we do have consonant sounds that are plosive, that are maybe unvoiced fricatives, that cause an interruption in the flow of sound. But they don't have to cause an interruption in the flow of expression. They don't have to cause an interruption in the flow of your breath. The breath doesn't have to stop just because a consonant stops it. Anything else that can threaten to make our singing discontinuous? We'll come up with lots of things as people sing.
Like a melody with like particularly large intervals that will change.
Wide intervals, right? Because you want to be doing continuity with your singing, but then the melodic line is going to be maybe angular or discontinuous. And so if you all of a sudden have to navigate a wide ascending or descending interval or a series of them, then you must figure out how can you have vocal continuity while these pitch changes are happening. It's a kind of coordination, like most of the things we're going to be looking at today, to figure out how can you really commit to the flow of expression, the flow of phonation, and the flow of your breath, while all of these things that are happening that are discontinuous. Because yes, articulation is discontinuous. You have like a long, stream of phonemes connected one to the other. Melodies may be discontinuous. Even if it's a nice sustained legato line, it's going to go up and down. There are going to be long notes and short notes. So I am really grateful for all of you who came here tonight and were willing to bring repertoire that presents a variety of different legato challenges, because we're going to cover as many of these things as possible and try to find that thread of continuity in the face of all of these things that threaten to interrupt it. Okay. So, Mandy, you want to kick us off?
Yes. Should I introduce myself?
You should introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to sing.
Hello friends, hello internet. My name is Amanda Galuzzo and I will be singing Tu che di già sei cinta from Turandot, and I believe if we have time, a small amount of Come Scoglio for fun.
Okay, we'll do the Puccini start.
Okay.
Amanda to start us off because this is an example of a piece that is designed to be performed with very long legato lines, and Italian is arguably a more legato language than some because we can move so smoothly in and out of most of the consonant sounds, and the vowels are so simple. And I thought like, what am I going to do with you? Because you demonstrated a really good sense of legato line. So let me first just ask, how was that for you?
I thought it was good. I thought it was a really successful performance, and I think I handled the lines well. I think that there was some room for improvement though, especially because I often feel like I run out of breath and then I can't sustain legato lines sometimes.
And that's what I felt. I felt like Amanda would have liked to have had a little bit more breath at her disposal while you were doing that. And I think that it wasn't even the way that you were managing your breath once you started the phrase. I felt like the way that you were transitioning in between phrases could have facilitated that more. So there is something else that we need to think about in terms of legato. Expression is continuous, but we're going to sing one phrase, and then we're going to breathe, and then we're going to sing another phrase. So how you release the phrase, how you intake your air, and then how you release and start the other phrase, these little transitions between the phrases that we sing, these have to be smooth, continuous movements, legato movements as well. And so that's what I would like to focus on.
Okay.
And so before you do anything else, I'd like you to just sing the first few phrases. And what I'd like the two of you to do is, once you release the phrase, Amanda, I would like you to just, everything's going to stop, the breaths are going to be arrhythmic. I want you to take as much time as you need to inhale fully and expand, and then start the next phrase.
Okay.
So that we find out, like, if you could have like the perfect breath in the perfect world, what would that look like? Then we'll figure out how you can do that in the context of actually coming in.
Was it moving comfortably?
It was moving comfortably. I
I tend to start too slow sometimes.
No, I think it was a really good tempo for me. Yeah, I just didn't use my breath as efficiently as I could have been using it.
So we're going to focus on taking in more expansive, smooth breaths in between phrases.
Okay. So now we're going right on it.
Sorry.
Okay, you get pitch?
I prepared.
Right on
No, I
it.
just
Sorry,
prepared
sorry.
it too much.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Extra time.
It wasn't a lot of extra time. You could, okay, so if that's the amount of time that in a perfect world you need to breathe, you can sell that. You can phrase it that way.
Yeah, I felt like I was just like, slow down.
No, she really wasn't taking. Okay, so this is instructive in itself. Because I was going to stop. He's like, no, take the breath you want. And I could see like, no, she looks like she's taking the breath that she wants. So there is more time to breathe than you think there is sometimes. Is one of the takeaways from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with the breath that you're taking, I know what a good imagination you have, and I know what a good musician you have. I think that if you felt like you had all the breath you needed for days, you would bring us a little bit more shape and nuance to some of these phrases.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to add another exercise to what she's doing. Sometimes modeling continuity with other movements can help. So I'm going to ask Amanda, when she breathes, to like start with a fairly close position, and then gradually and steadily pull on the band. And you want to try to budget this so that it takes you the length of the phrase.
Okay.
And don't let go of the tension on the band until you let go of the phrase,
Okay.
right? Until you're ready to inhale. And then you can take extra time if you want to breathe and do the next phrase.
Okay.
Let's see how that goes. Now, this is not just modeling continuity for her and distracting her, although that is one of the things that makes it useful to have a band to pull on. It's also encouraging her to stabilize her shoulder muscles, right? Because if you're singing away and you're running out of breath and you find that your chest is collapsing, right? That's going to make it difficult for you to keep your continuous airflow going. Whereas if you can keep your shoulders nice and stable, then your sternum will stay high and you can do what it is that you want with the rest of your breath management system. So this does help with that, but mostly it's just going to distract you a little bit. We'll give you something continuous to do.
From the beginning again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, but did you hear what you knew that you were going to be able to do the
Yeah.
pianissimo that you wanted
Yeah.
there. And that makes a big difference. Okay, so just talk to us a little bit about what that felt like.
Well, I got so distracted on that I really didn't think about much, but like I knew that I had all the air I needed, and I knew that I could achieve the phrasing I wanted, you know? I think I could still take more time to breathe.
You could, because one of the things that like with this exercise that people will sometimes do is they'll get here and they're like, oh, and then like, they feel like they don't have enough time to like go back to that, but you give yourself plenty of time to do it.
Yeah.
So this is a useful tool for you. Well, actually, I'd like you to just sing the rest of the aria.
Okay.
Like that, and give her extra time. You have all the time you want to breathe.
Yeah.
Okay. So, prima di
Yeah.
questo.
Yeah.
You want to give me the...
Nice job. What's funny?
I felt very powerful.
You can get away with that.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that I noticed when I was watching her do this is that there were some phrases that, like, you got to the end, and I felt like you wanted to hold the note a little bit longer, and you were like, let's see if I can just pull a little more, and then you were able to hold the note a little bit longer. And again, like, the reason why that works, we get to the end of our phrase, and the instinct may be to, like, try to squeeze the air out, right? To just, like, get to the end of the phrase. But if instead of feeling like you've got to squeeze the air out, the signal that you're getting from your body, right, is that if you don't do something to your breath, then you're not going to be able to hold the phrase as long as you want to, you're not going to be able to shape it the way that you want to. But usually what it is that you need is not necessarily a quantity or volume of air. What you need is improved subglottal breath pressure, and just creating a little bit of additional tension on these shoulder stabilizing muscles, right? Will engage some of your inspiratory muscles as well. It has the effect of holding the air back. And so that will, whatever air you have left in your lungs, it will enable you to provide a better quality of breath pressure to your vocal folds, and then enable you to sustain the phrase a little bit longer. So,
That's cool.
something else that I noticed about Amanda's performance right from the beginning is that her expression was continuous, and I really appreciate that. Because when does the aria start? You know, it doesn't start when the piano starts playing, right? it starts when you take the stage. It starts when you take on the character, when you take on the mood of the piece. And you did that for us, and you didn't break it once throughout the performance, which is just, it's worth mentioning because sometimes people forget that, like, we can still see you when you're not singing. You still need to be expressing the character when you're not singing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just take a quick look at that section of Call Me Slowly.
Okay.
So for those of you, pretty much everybody probably knows who Fiordiligi is and what this aria is. This is from
Così fan tutte.
and Mozart wrote a very interesting challenge.
He didn't particularly like the soprano he wrote it for, apparently.
Well,
So-
the story.
Yeah, that's
is,
how the story goes. So she had this little habit of singing high notes with her chin raised and then singing low notes lowered. So the aria has quite a bit of this going on.
Yeah.
I may share that habit a tad bit.
No, okay. Well, you can, but then we'll fix it, and then
We will.
we'll look brilliant. So, all right. How legato can you sing this section for us?
We're doing the rest of it?
We're just
No.
doing just call me Scolio, just that one statement
Yeah.
for fun. As you say.
Come scoglio immoto resta contra I venti e la tempesta
It's all right. So we need the band back for that one.
We need
but,
the band.
All right. So I felt like her phonation and airflow were pretty continuous.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you hear how crazy that is. Now, what I think could be more continuous, and we didn't talk about this at the beginning of the class, is the way that Amanda is modulating your registration. How you modulate your registration will also contribute to a sense of continuity or discontinuity or legato. If we feel like you're singing with your voice with one weight and then all of a sudden go to another one, you might want to do that for comic effect, and maybe some people do that with this aria. But I think it's funnier when it all sounds like it's in one place. So let's just see about the day la tempesta. What's the pitch that's starting?
Flat A.
Okay.
E la tempesta
Okay, so we'll talk about that last la tempesta in a moment. But what's so there's a low A, there's a higher A. There you go. Go slow. Go slow. That's tough. You almost made it. Very good. Now, that doesn't sound so different from the way that she was singing it before, but it's a more balanced place for that note that will then enable you to navigate away from it again. Do that again. Now you go. E la tempesta.
E la tempesta.
E la tempesta.
E la tempesta.
And it's like the higher note just sort of came right out of the lower note. Yeah, good. Now that last phrase, it's not a question of being legato, it's a question, well, yes, it is a question of being legato in terms of taking a legato breath, right? Fiordiligi knows that she's going to sing a big high note, right? Because that's the whole point of what she's doing.
That's what she's about.
So you can make a bit of business about, you can take the time that you want. E la tempesta. E la tempesta, right? You just set it up. Set it up.
Okay.
I don't think you need the band. So,
No.
E la tempesta. Okay, to the end.
E la tempesta
I think you need to take more time to breathe.
Yeah?
Yeah, because
Even
you
with the
wanna.
Mozart, so even,
Well, maybe you need to be able to take a bigger breath faster.
Okay.
For now, I would
Just-
rather have
okay.
you. I would rather have you. Because nothing's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
They're all standing there looking at you,
Yeah.
and the longer you can hold that note,
Yeah.
you've got control.
Mm-hmm.
So one more
Okay.
time.
E la tempesta.
Yeah. So you need to give yourself
yeah.
permission to.
Yeah.
It's funnier that way.
Yeah, it is funny.
Good. Well, thank you for being willing to show that
Fine.
to us.
I figured I should sing it in public sometime this year.
Okay. So, spoiler, you'll get to hear the rest of the aria some other time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, everybody.
So, Joanna, would you be willing to
Sure.
go next?
Yeah.
Start singing in French. And I think we should go in order of languages that are increasingly nefarious for our legato.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, tell us what you're going to sing.
Yes. Hello, I'm Joanna Geffert. I'm a mezzo-soprano. I will be singing Cœur sans amour from Cendrillon by Massenet. This is the prince's aria in the second act. And he's very melancholy. He's talking about how he's sad and he's been told by his father that he needs to find a wife, and he's daydreaming basically in the middle of the aria about finding that perfect woman, but on either side of it, he's still very sad and upset. Allez, laissez-moi seul, seul
right.
Oh.
Great piece for this.
Oh,
I
great.
get nervous when I start. We're not going to use this right away. This is a magic wand massager, and one of the reasons that I really find massagers useful in the voice studio is that they promote continuity, right? Because if you turn it on, it's just going to keep going. It's going to keep buzzing, vibrating at the same rate until you turn it off. And so if you are inclined to do something discontinuous and you've got this sort of on your body somewhere, it's going to sort of remind you, no, keep going, keep going, keep going. So we're going to do that in a way that helps with the breath in a moment. But I'd like to just sort of use this aria to talk about continuity with both phonation and airflow. I felt that like what I would expect to be one of the more difficult moments, that sort of rapid recitative moment right in the middle of the aria, I felt like her continuity, her legato was impeccable at that moment. And so figuring out how to bring that same sense of communicative urgency when the words are moving so slowly is going to be a big part of making this even easier and more beautiful for you to sing.
Okay.
So could we start at the beginning, not that little introductory thing, but when she starts with Cœur sans amour. And I'd like you to just sort of, you described, I don't know if whiny is an aspect of the prince that...
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, okay, so let's exaggerate that now. I want you to kind of whine in rhythm in the range that the piece is, and just while Kathy plays the piano part, if you could be more...
Sure.
And just whine your way through a few phrases of this in rhythm.
Not on pitch.
Not on pitch, just
Just
in
in
the
rhythm.
range, but
Okay.
in rhythm.
Okay.
Okay?
So why not it then?
Sure. Cœur sans amour, printemps sans rose.
Now, can you be even whinier? Because I feel like I'm still getting like individual syllables too well defined. I don't think he has the energy for that. So instead of Cœur sans amour, sort of pointing to the rhythm, if you could just be more like Cœur sans amour, so it just kind of comes out of you in one long continuous French whine.
Sure.
Okay.
A good French wine?
A very smooth French whine.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Cœur sans amour, printemps sans rose. Pour moi tous les jours sont moroses.
That was excellent. That was excellent. I mean, it sounded silly, but you did exactly what it is that I wanted you to do.
Great.
Now, there was never a moment where I felt like Joanna might run out of breath while you're doing that.
Nor did I
So
feel.
yeah, and you were energetic and you were expressive, but maybe just a little bit one-dimensional with what you want to express with the song.
Sure.
But that continuous phonation that she gave us in that range means that her chords are approximating cleanly the whole way through. There's no extra air, there's no air escaping. So that's a good way to sort of give yourself a template, for figuring out, why am I running out of breath on this phrase? Why don't I have as much breath as I want? If you can just get yourself to sort of speak in a sustained, maybe a little bit whiny way, and demonstrate what it takes to really get your chords to approximate cleanly throughout the phrase. So now if I asked you to whine it on pitch, you don't have to do it quite as exaggerated as that, but just show us what happens if you
Okay.
take a slightly similar approach.
Sure.
to singing it.
Cœur sans amour, printemps sans rose. Pour moi tous les jours sont moroses.
Good. Okay. So what was that like?
Good. It felt supported. It felt like I had enough breath.
Yeah, you did. Now, that's not as different from what she needs to do to really sing it as you might think. But that's, again, sort of modeling for yourself, what does it feel like to do continuous phonation through a few phrases of a song? So now let's just take a look at the continuous airflow. And what I'd like you to do is just sing that same section, but on ah,
Okay.
or whatever your favorite vowel will be. Is that okay?
Sure.
E?
Let's do E.
Okay, so let me hear just the same thing, read in the same places, and just sort of release your breath and sing it on E.
Okay.
sudden everything's much easier. However, I think that you could be more continuous with what you're doing with the breath.
Okay.
The way that I was first taught to sing had more to do with how to invest breath into individual syllables and tones. And then legato was supposed to be achieved by figuring out how to kind of like string them together. And I think that it's probably better, easier, and more fun to start from, what are the sounds of the words that I'm saying? How can I better express the words of this phrase? And then, rather than thinking individual syllables, thinking in terms of the whole phrase. And then if there's something that's keeping one of your vowel sounds or one of the pitches from being as beautiful and resonant as you want, then you can go back and woodshed that and figure that out. But if you start from a place of continuity, rather than starting from like, I need to produce this tone, then this tone, then this tone, then string them all together, I think it's a much better approach for your singing and for your dramatic presentation as well. And one of the reasons is that like, if you're producing individual tones and infusing breath into them, then you're continually stopping and starting with your breath. And you may not even realize that that's what you're doing. But if instead, once you get a good breath and you release it, you can have the same continuity with your breath that you had when I was asking you to all do a sustained hiss, or what Amanda was doing with the band. So one of the things that I like to use the massager for is to just check in and see what are you doing with your breathing system. Because over the course of the phrase, things are going to be happening in your abdomen, whether that's part of your technique of breath management or not. So whatever's engaging, whatever's doing something, you want to make sure that it's doing it smoothly rather than stopping and starting for individual notes. So what I'd like you to do now is I'm going to turn this on my head to you. I'd like you to just kind of lean into it and hold it high in your abdomen under your sternum.
Okay.
And then I'd like you to sing this phrase on E again. And so a little bit higher. And just notice what you feel.
Okay.
If you feel something, and I know it might be a little bit itchy, sometimes people have itchy, but if what you are feeling there is continuous, or if there's something stopping and starting, that's what I want you to notice over the course of each phrase.
On E.
On E. What do you notice?
I feel like I'm more engaged and connecting better and lower to my breath, and it's easier.
Yeah,
Because I'm distracted?
maybe because you just, these are distractions. Toys are distractions.
Or it's like I'm trying to keep that positive tension against that, and in that perhaps I'm keeping this more expanded and using my breath better.
Well, whatever it is that you're doing it more consistently.
Great, okay.
Because as I watched her do this, I felt like she was getting to a point where like, I'm gonna have to change pitch and it's gonna be a higher note and I'm gonna have to go, and then you decided, no, I'm not going to. Whether that was conscious or not.
Yeah.
But in comparison with the way that you were singing it before, I felt like what you were doing with your breath was much more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I want you to put it all together. First, I want you to just go through and whine that again.
Okay.
Not on pitch, but and be careful to just pay attention. The temptation to sort of swell each one, which you might do if you were whining.
Mm-hmm.
But let's have each line be like one long whine.
Okay.
Okay, so just without the pitch,
Okay.
whine your way through it. Good, and now I'd like you to sing it with the words, with this reminder.
Okay.
In your abs. And you can keep going.
Okay.
Morose
happens often, that the composer will give you some discontinuity in the middle of a phrase.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just say for us in English what you're expressing there?
Oh gosh, I can't remember what the actual literal translation is, but I'm talking about how I'm shivering, and shivers cover my body, or something along those lines.
Can you just speak the text for us there? Pourtant.
Pourtant, de doux frissons glissent partout mon être.
Okay, and so what do you think Massenet is doing with those rests that he's written in the middle of that phrase? Why does he interrupt you there? Why is it discontinuous?
Because
There's no right answer, but
I think it's for dramatic effect for my character when I'm saying I'm shivering, so it's like the shivers, I guess.
okay. So can you speak it in rhythm, but express that in a way that makes you interrupt yourself the way
Sure.
that the music's going to?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Right on it?
Well, just speak it without the music. Just pourtant.
Pourtant, de doux frissons glissent partout mon être.
Good. Now, can you do it in a way that feels a little bit more true to life? Like if you were like, oh my God, I'm shivering. Like, pourtant, what are the words?
Pourtant, de doux frissons.
Pourtant, to do frisson. Like, what's happening to me?
Okay?
You're like figuring it out.
Sure. Pourtant, de doux frissons glissent partout mon être.
Yes. That was continuous expression. All right? So you were interrupting the line and you're breathing and hyperventilating it a little bit, but you were continually expressing the emotion and the text. Do that again.
Okay? Pourtant, de doux frissons glissent partout mon être.
Now, do you think you can comfortably do the same thing with your breath while you sing this section?
Sure.
Good. Let's try it.
Okay. Right on it?
Right on.
Pourtant, de doux frissons glissent partout mon être.
Yes, that makes a huge difference, John. Because when we have these things, we see these little rests, and we think that that means that we're supposed to just stop. But when you're singing, as a rule of thumb, you should either be inhaling or singing. And if you've got like a long break between phrases, then you should either be inhaling or exhaling. But if you hold your breath, even if it's just for like the little eighth rest or whatever it is in this line, when you're holding your breath, then you're not expressing anything. And when you hold your breath, you get the audience to hold their breath too. They may not realize it, but they will do it sympathetically. Whereas if you are continually breathing, they're going to continually breathe with you. One of the things I think is an important part of our job is that we breathe for the audience. You know, if you go to an opera, you're probably going to be inhaling and exhaling more than if you were just like sitting at home, I don't know, watching television. I don't know. I breathe more when I hear singing. So that's continuous expression because your breath kept moving.
Okay.
This is similar to what we were talking about too, like how you inhale between phrases. What we were talking about with we're going to hear Veronica do this with the Bach that you're going to sing for us. That how you inhale is part of your legato, even when it's a measure like this. Okay, start there and then go on from there.
Okay. Pourtant, de doux frissons glissent partout mon être, cœur sans amour, printemps sans rose, printemps sans rose.
Good. Now, can I hear you do the Cœur sans amour again? Just whine it for us once again.
Sure.
Cœur
Cœur sans amour.
and then what's the note that it's like? Oh, it's not pitch. Okay. Now, can the way that we were working on this the other day, can you just sing cœur for me, and start with that sort of whiny straight tone, but then allow it to become a little bit more sung environment. So, good. Now do that again and see if you can have it evolve into vibrancy a little bit more sneakily.
Okay.
Yes. Now, when she does that, she's kind of letting her chords tell her breath how much air they need. And I think that if you will start the phrase a little bit more like that and just allow like your vocal folds to be like the arbiter of how much breath they're gonna get, make the breath available. But I think you don't need as much air as you're using in this phrase.
Okay.
Let me hear you go again.
Cœur sans amour.
How little air do you need for that?
Cœur sans amour.
Can we start right there? Can you do it like that?
Cœur sans amour. Printemps sans rose. Pour tous les jours sans... Sorry, we're back to the other one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, but that
Sorry.
yeah, let's keep going through. But that, did you guys hear the difference? That seemed like a much more economical use of your breath, and it was a better legato.
Excellent.
What did it feel like to you? Can you tell us what
Like
was
I was
different?
consciously trying to do less.
Well,
In a good way.
okay, so start there and finish the piece and just be asking yourself, how little can I do?
Okay.
Because I think that he doesn't really want to exert himself very much right now.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're in
So in this, when it returns.
transition.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Cœur sans amour, printemps sans rose, printemps sans rose. Si montant dans les bras, je le voyais paraître, c'est le cœur en mon âme, enivré, radieux. Je lui dirai dans mon ivresse, je lui dirai, je suis à toi. Je suis à toi, prends ma jeunesse, que nous l'amour fera des dieux. Je suis à toi. Mais je vis triste, triste et seul, le cœur brisé d'ennui et morose sont toutes les nuits. Mon cœur est brisé, je suis triste et seul.
How was that?
Good. Felt a lot better. Felt easier, though there were still some parts that I wanted to give it more than I needed to, and so I would sort of start that and then try to rein it back in a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be a good place for you to start. Just like question that, because it may be that at some point you needed, all of us, more breath pressure to like get your voice to go, because you didn't have the level of freedom and skill and stamina that you have right now, and then you disentangle things and you build some skill and your technique gets better and you don't need all of that wind anymore. You don't need all that breath pressure anymore, but your breath management system might not have gotten the memo. So test it out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just look at the climactic phrase. What are the words there?
Mon cœur est brisé, je suis triste et seul.
Okay, can you just, I don't want you to sing it right now, but can you just play the outline of that? Mon cœur est brisé. Okay, so is it mon cœur?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Mon cœur
Bacardi Brisé.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just like do what he's doing? It's like Bacardi Brisé, and still just whine for it.
Bacardi Brisé.
That was the pitch, right? You didn't need any wind to get up there. You just needed that emotional commitment to whine on that note.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Bacardi Brisé.
Bacardi Brisé.
Good. Do it again.
Bacardi
So I
Brisé.
want you to sing a little, and use the band and just whine and don't blow and see what happens.
But actually saying that.
Bacardi Brisé.
Bacardi Brisé. Je suis triste et seul.
That was good. I still feel like you can do less on what do you? Bacardi Brisé.
Bacardi
You don't have to
Brisé.
do much more than that. Just allow the breath to participate and however it goes.
Okay. Bacardi Brisé. Je suis triste et seul.
Good. All right, so keep working with that. Yeah, you don't have to work nearly as hard
Okay.
as you think. And maybe you did, but you have to just like find out. For me, it always begins with like the requirements of like the character and the text. What has to happen for you to be able to tell this story? You know, along the parameters that the composer gave you.
Mm-hmm.
And don't second guess your chords. They're responding to your imagination. They're responding to all of the training that you've given them for all of these years. And they're going to let you know how much air they need. They're going to let you know how much breath pressure they need. They're going to let you know when you need to breathe.
Okay.
And yeah, good work.
Thank you.
Carson will be our first English selection.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you're going to sing.
Yes, so I will be singing Thou Shalt Break Them from the Messiah. And this is, what I'm saying basically is that you need to believe in Christ, and if you don't, you'll be sorry. The heavens will break you. And it's right before the Hallelujah chorus, fun fact. It's the song right before.
And what's your tempo?
And then I do this.
Okay, good, good. I got this on anthology. So, good. All right. Can I get it?
I don't think so. He that dwelleth in heaven shall laugh them to scorn. The Lord shall have them in derision. Thou shalt break them, thou shalt break them with the rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Thou shalt break them, thou shalt break them with the rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel, like a potter's vessel.
the legato challenges for this piece?
It's easy to chop up. It's very, well, also the consonants in the English can definitely get in the way.
And the subtext too, because
Yes.
you're talking about breaking things up.
Breaking things, exactly.
Yeah. So
Literally.
you have to still break things up in a way that is continuous. I'm interested, I'd like to look at the melismas first.
Yes.
So what are you saying on the long melismas?
On the-
So the first one.
Yeah, it's like a potter's
Potter's
vessel.
Okay, so just sing that for us once, and I want us all to be thinking about,
Oh.
why,
Mhm.
okay, so we all know where we are?
Oh, yeah, we do now.
Why the melisma? Why the coloratura here?
Mhm.
What is it saying? So, and how are you going to use that to break them?
I see.
So just sing it once and then we'll talk about it. Sorry.
Like a potter's vessel.
That was excellent. That was really very smooth.
Thank you.
So what is your subtext for the coloratura? It's important to,
Meaning.
meaning, why are there all these 16th notes to express the potter's vessel?
Because it's an important word.
Okay. The potter is the one who made the thing, and you're gonna
Mhm.
break the thing he made.
Right.
So let's take a further step back here and ask a strange question.
Mhm.
Who are you? Who is the character who sings this aria?
I'm, well, a Bible character. It could be, there's not a distinct person, but someone like Peter or Matthew, Mark, and I'm coming to warn the people that you have to believe in order to receive.
Okay, so let's just, it's interesting to talk about this because, especially with something like Messiah, it's a story that we all know. Like, what's the first time any one of us ever heard this story? But it is a very dramatic story. When Handel started writing oratorios, it wasn't because he, decided to be more spiritual.
Right.
It was that, I guess, the money from the operas dried up, and so like the church had more money, and so he went and wrote operas for the church instead. But these are still extremely dramatic stories that we're telling.
Mhm.
And for you to really deliver it, it's got to have the same, it's like you're Tamino,
Mhm.
Looking at the portrait for the first time.
Right.
You are this person who's endowed with information, and you have come to give us a very important message.
Mhm.
You guys know Scott Barnes?
Yes.
Scott Barnes is a wonderful coach. I think of him as a dramatic coach, but he's really a lot more than that. He helps with a lot of different aspects of singing. He had a piece that he wrote for Opera News that I'll see if I can find and send it to you that I love, because it's a big pet peeve of his that we don't treat oratorio
Mhm.
more dramatically. And I'm trying to think what the example was he wrote in this piece, but from Messiah, these are amazing supernatural stories. And there were shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night, right? Very happy, simple, pastoral thing. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. The soprano looked aside, and lo, the angel of the Lord. It's like this cataclysmic thing just happened, right?
Yeah.
And what you're saying here is very serious.
Mhm.
What is the wretch did to you? Can you just speak it for us
Yeah.
at the beginning?
He that dwelleth in heaven shall laugh them to scorn. The Lord shall have them in derision.
How did you come to know this extraordinary thing?
You,
No, you, the character.
okay. Me,
You don't have to, there's no right answer again,
Right.
but have some fun thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, and so for a moment, just like role play, all of these people,
Okay.
they have no idea what you're talking about, and this thing is about to happen to them.
Right.
And are you laughing at them?
Yeah, in a way I am.
Okay, so enjoy that. The tenor usually doesn't
Okay.
get to be evil in that way. Okay?
All right.
No, just speak it.
Oh.
Tell us what's going to happen to us.
He that dwelleth in heaven shall laugh them to scorn. The Lord shall have them in derision.
Huh. Now, what if you made it last longer?
The notes, or?
Well, just like tell us a little bit more slowly so that it sinks in
I see.
and you can
Okay.
see how upset you're making us by saying these
see.
things.
He that dwelleth in heaven shall laugh them to scorn. The Lord shall have them in derision.
Okay, now, I'm not saying that that's like the perfect interpretation for this, but
Mhm.
it's going in a direction where I'm starting to see a character. You are powerful, you have this very privileged information, you're on a first name basis with God, and we are just not, we're just the unwashed masses here. So, okay, so let's hear the recitative.
Okay.
Take your time and just like tell us that story.
Okay. He that dwelleth in heaven shall laugh them to scorn. The Lord shall have them in derision.
Good. Now, I thought that was better and more continuous and more expressive.
Definitely.
You didn't look like you were enjoying yourself quite as much as when you were just yelling at us.
Yeah, that's true.
So see if you can have that too. Now,
Okay.
there are some really amazing words that we're not used to hearing,
Right.
like derision. Just speak it for us again.
He that dwelleth in heaven shall laugh them to scorn. The Lord shall have them in derision.
Yes. Dwelleth in heaven. What a concept that is.
Right.
The Lord, that's got a big capital L on it.
Yes.
This is recitative, so you can take your time with it. And again, this is still within the context of thinking about legato and continuity, because thought is continuous. And these need to sound like continuous sentences delivering a message. Can you enjoy the words more?
Yes.
Scorn,
Sure.
derision. Okay, one more
Yes.
time. And enjoy torturing us.
Okay.
That's your character.
Okay. He that dwelleth in heaven shall laugh them to scorn. The Lord shall have them in derision.
Can we in derision point to that? Just the Lord again.
The Lord shall have them in derision.
Really good. Now, I've never heard Carson sing before, but I think that made it easier for you to sing.
Oh, much easier.
Yeah. Always, before you start trying to troubleshoot, like, oh, do I have tongue tension? Do I have enough breath? Where are my high notes today? Just come back to what you're saying and who the character is. Because if you can really get the character in your body, and you can really intend these phrases, with the notes and the rhythms that the composer has written for you, then that's going to solve a lot of your problems. Whereas if you don't look at that, and you just start looking at it from a completely mechanistic point of view, you can fuss with your breath, you can fuss with your jaw, you can fuss with, your ah vowel, but if you don't really mean what you're saying, it's not going to be legato.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the orchestra plays for a while while you stand there ready to sing your aria. If this were an opera, you would be doing something. And this is an oratorio, so you still need to be doing something,
Right.
because it still is just as dramatic, but maybe you won't move around so much, and if you're performing it, you'd have your score.
Right.
I'd like you to start it again. So do the recitative for us again, and perform the interlude.
Okay. He that dwelleth in heaven shall laugh them to scorn. The Lord shall have them in derision.
Things that were going to happen to you.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. That was really excellent. Okay, so just give him a couple of bars. And,
Okay, from this.
Thou shalt break them. Thou shalt break them with the rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel.
Okay, so this is now going in a much better direction dramatically.
Yes.
And like always.
It's freeing up the voice too. I feel so
Yeah.
much freer
Always
singing it.
start with your motivation.
Yes.
Because then, if you really just like let yourself unleash it, you know, we want to wait for permission, like, okay, my technique is all lined up and I know what all the vowels are and now I can invest my dramatic energy into it. It's got to be the other way around.
Yeah.
Because if you just like completely sing this with total abandon, then if something doesn't work, we're gonna know that that's a little thing we need to, you know,
Right.
find out what's going on there, and help you with that. But especially high notes, I can't sing high notes unless they're motivated. I mean, I might be able to produce the pitch, but it's not gonna feel good, it's not gonna sound good. So if you mean it. Now that I know what a good actor you are,
Thank you.
in these little interludes between the phrases, the first time that he sang it, I felt like you were kind of reacting to what you just said.
I see.
And now you're motivating what you said.
I see.
You say, thou shalt break them, and then there's a little bit of a break. And in that break, you should be thinking, is it going to be with the thing, or is it going to be with the other thing?
Other thing.
And then it can be another thing. And just always be like picturing, what are you going to be doing to all these people? They really should have known better. You warned them.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so just from thou shalt break them, and just be picturing what you're going to do to them next before
From
you
the
tell us about it.
beginning.
Yes.
Okay.
Without after the wretched.
Thou shalt break them, thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Thou shalt dash them to pieces, in pieces like a potter's vessel.
What's going to happen next?
Thou shalt break them. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron.
There's the rod of iron.
Yes.
And again, I feel like there is a lot more dramatic continuity here, and like the things, I think that one of the continuity challenges are these wide intervals between the thou and the shalt, and then when it leaves up. We'll talk
Yes.
about that in a moment, but this is with the rod of iron. So, what's happening with this rod of iron? Are you brandishing it?
I think I'm breaking it, maybe.
You're gonna break them with the rod
With
of
a
iron.
rod iron, yeah.
Okay, so sometimes we have to go a little bit more graphic with our imaginations. This was written a long time ago,
Right.
before there were like, you know, superhero movies. But in your mind, you have certain visions of mayhem from things that you've seen in real life and on television or in
Yes.
movies. So bring that to bear, because like Handel never got to see these things, but you have,
Right.
and everybody in your audience has. So what's the worst thing you could do with that rod of iron?
Break them with it.
Okay, are you going to twist it? Are you going to stab them? Are you
I
going
think
to
stab.
scare them with it?
I think stab.
Okay, so how can this be
Well,
stabby?
well, maybe the first time scare, actually.
What does Handel say though? Let's sing the whole phrase,
To
and just
build.
notice the contour, because maybe you're just like doing this and then, depending on how the music goes.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
What was that?
So,
Thou
yeah,
shalt.
thou shalt break them. So on the A.
Thou shalt break them. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron.
Yeah.
Thou shalt dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel, like a potter's vessel. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel.
Good. Okay, so let's talk about these rather angular lines. The way that he wrote it, and there's like all of these things in the orchestra to sort of like accent all these things too. So how is that going to be legato? Because we do want you to be like smashing, smashing, smashing,
Right.
ha ha. But with your voice, you have to still be expressing things continuously because you don't want to be smashing this,
Right.
right? So let me just hear you say very legato, thou shalt dash them in pieces.
Thou shalt dash them in pieces.
Good. Can I just hear those pitches that go with that? This is, oh wait, the last one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so find out what does it feel like to just sort of do the contour of the line. We were doing some of this with Joanna. So what if you go, thou shalt dash them
Thou shalt dash them
in pieces.
in pieces.
Right, so that's what he's doing, right? So if you can have that sort of like, and it's very onomatopoetic there, right?
Mhm.
Thou shalt dash them in pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So speak it. Thou shalt dash them in
Thou
pieces.
shalt dash them in pieces.
Yes, you're so happy about it.
Yeah.
So
I'll
before
be
we
more
actually
into
talk
this.
about, so don't let your voice be, thou shalt dash them.
Yeah.
The accent marks are actually written in the orchestra but not in the voice part, so let her do it, right?
Right.
And you can just be like, thou shalt dash them in pieces.
Okay.
Just give them a couple bars before that. Okay, see them?
That, yeah, the rest of it.
Okay,
Oh,
see
sorry.
where we are? Yeah.
Thou shalt dash them in
Okay,
pieces.
but just keep follow through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I did.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel.
Good. All right. So that's better.
Yeah.
Now it's an A.
Right.
And Carson was telling me he just recently switched from singing baritone repertoire. I'm so glad that you did.
Thank you.
Because your sound is so lovely for this.
Thank you.
But let me just hear you. Where's an easy place for you to kind of sing that A? Can I just hear you kind of go,
Yeah.
ooh, and falsetto on that note?
Oh.
So it's gonna be falsetto, so you don't have to reach for it.
Mhm.
In fact, let me just hear you go, very gently. And start by just allowing a little bit of breath to release, and then ask your voice when it's ready to respond on that note, because it might need a little bit of time. So when it's ready. Can you give me a little line of your nose on that note?
Yeah.
Like a puppy. That's the A, right? Ha, ha, as in dash. Good. Thou shalt dash them.
Thou shalt dash them.
Now, it's the D, it's the explosiveness, right? That's one of the things that makes it the D. So don't put extra effort behind that D, or it's gonna like blow things apart.
Yeah.
And don't go to the sh too soon.
Right.
Enjoy the nasty vowel. Ah, such
Right.
a terrible vowel.
Yeah.
Thou shalt dash them.
Okay. Thou shalt dash them.
Good. Now let me have that whine on the A again. So. Dash.
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 Now I don't know what's gonna happen when you sing this full voice,
Okay.
but be
I'll
willing
try.
for it to be more like that.
Okay.
But try not to separate it because of thou shalt dash them with all these consonants.
Yeah.
It's more like thou shalt dash them.
Right.
You can make a gesture too if you want to
Okay.
smash them. Okay.
Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel.
Good. All
I
right.
felt like that was better.
That was much better.
I felt better. I don't
That
know
was
how
much
it's-
better. And again, like I'm not Carson's voice teacher, and I really appreciate your coming and sharing this
Thank
with us
you.
today. So
Thank you
however it
so
is that you're
much.
working on your high notes, keep doing that.
Yeah.
But if you will give it like more subtext, because otherwise the subtext ends up being like, oh my God, it's this high note. How am I ever going to sing this high note?
Right.
When instead of your subtext is like, I'm going to dash them,
Yeah.
then you're probably going to have an easier
Got it.
time. Yeah. And then this becomes an even better, more appropriate piece for you to be like
Right.
integrating your range into this
Mhm.
new orientation
Yes.
you found.
Thank you
Great
so
job.
much.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Veronica, tell us a little bit about this piece. Veronica has some Bach.
Yeah.
And I love Bach. But Bach is often thinking very instrumentally, and so we need to learn how to accommodate his lines. Do you want a music stand? So Veronica's going to show us how it's done. Tell us a little bit about this piece and
So
what you
this
picked
is
it.
from the cantata Was soll ich aus dir machen, Ephraim? And it's about the justice of God. And in this case, it's about showing how much Jesus suffered. And I am going to ask God to help me to show how many blood drops Jesus suffered.
And what is your tempo? Alright.
Gerechter Gott, ach, rechnest du? Gerechter Gott, ach, rechnest du? So werde ich zum Heil der Seelen die Tropfen Blut von Jesu zählen. So werde ich zum Heil der Seelen die Tropfen Blut von Jesu zählen. Ach, rechne mir die Summen zu, ach, rechne mir die Summen zu. Weil sie niemand kann begründen, bedeckt sie meine Schuld und Sünde, bedeckt sie meine Schuld und Sünde. Ach, rechne mir die Summen zu, ach, rechne mir die Summen zu. Ja, weil sie niemand kann begründen, bedeckt sie meine Schuld und Sünden.
And
That's it.
Yes,
Oh,
that's the end.
Wow. So, when Veronica proposed what she might sing today, I picked this because I thought, oh, well, there are these wide, these wide ascending lines. That'll be a legato challenge, and then it's in German, and that'll be a legato challenge. I actually think you did both of those things quite well. So, first, well, share with us how was that for you? And
It was better than I felt 2 weeks ago. There I was running a lot out of breath, so I focused today on not running out of breath so much, so that worked better.
you focused
because-
on not running out of breath.
Yeah, by breathing.
Okay, that's why you prepared more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were intending longer phrases,
Yeah.
but it's like it sounds even better than when I heard you do this earlier today. Yeah.
I'm proud. I did it
so-
a little bit faster.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you like the faster tempo?
Yes, I liked it.
Okay, so let's stick with that. But one of the things that I would love to talk about with this is that similar to Carson's aria that he showed us, and this is true of a lot of Baroque music and a lot of bel canto. Sometimes composers are going to give you more than one note per syllable, and sometimes they're going to give you many more than one note per syllable. And so if you can think more the rhythm of the text rather than the rhythm of the melody.
Mhm.
And this is one of the things that, you know, we were
Yeah.
talking about earlier today. Because if you look at the way that it is on the page, we see it's gerechte Gott, ach rechtest du. But if you are thinking that way, then you're going to introduce some discontinuity into the way that you're delivering. Because we don't say gerechte, we say gerechte. So if you can speak it in rhythm without having to re-articulate those extra pitches, then that's going to give you a more sort of legato approach to expressing the text. So can I just hear you say, gerechte Gott, ach rechnest du. Or pronounce it better than me.
Gerechter Gott, ach rechnest du.
Yeah, and so that's the rhythm that he wants you to be expressing. And so then when you have something like this, actually could you sing for us? Kathy, this is the second entrance. Gerechte Gott, the second time that she does it, and then it goes into the long melisma.
Second.
So,
Yeah. It's bar
So-
12.
Bar 12, yeah.
Gerechter Gott, ach rechnest du, so werde ich zum Heil der Seelen, die Tropfen Blut von Jesu Seelen.
Right. So what would the actual rhythm of this be if you didn't have to sing all the melismas? Okay, you want to just try it?
Speaking it?
Speak it in rhythm.
Gerechter Gott, ach rechnest du, so werde ich zum Heil der Seelen die Tropfen
Right, it's just
Blut,
die Seelen, die Tropfen. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's much simpler, right?
Yes,
Because
it
if you're
is.
trying to go, die Seelen, die Tropfen, it's not say die Seelen, die Tropfen, Blut von, just do it from there. Die Seelen.
Mhm. Could I have the
Well, just speak it.
Speak it.
Just-
Okay.
In fact, go do this again. And see if
mhm.
it's still a little bit gerechte Gott, ach re. You see if you can make the rhythm sound a little bit more like the way that you would
Yeah.
speak it.
Yeah.
And Veronica's first language is German, so we'll have to take her word for it, right? So gerechte Gott, ach rechnest du.
Gerechter Gott, ach rechnest du, so werde ich zum Heil der Seelen. Die
So can you do it in rhythm?
Yeah.
That would be really in rhythm. But mask the fact that you're doing it. Gerechte Gott, ach
rechnest du, so werde ich zum Heil der Seelen die Tropfen Blut von Jesu zählen.
And then it's much more simple, right? It's just von Jesu zählen, as opposed to von Jesu
Yeah.
zählen.
Von Jesu zählen.
Good. Now, do that one more time. Can you just speak through it in rhythm while she plays, or is that going to be too confusing?
I'll try.
Okay, try it. So,
Gerechter Gott, ach rechnest du, so werde ich zum Heil der Seelen die Tropfen Blut von Jesu zählen.
yeah, isn't it? Because the rhythm is so complicated, but the statement is not complicated. Now, that was good, but see, again, if you can just make it so that it's the first time it ever occurred to anybody to say this, and you're just going to happen to do it on these rhythms. Because I still felt like there's a little bit of a question mark.
Yeah.
Gerechter Gott, ach rechnest du. But if you were really saying, you know, gerechter Gott, okay.
Gerechter Gott, ach rechnest du, so werde ich zum Heil der Seelen die Tropfen Blut von Jesu zählen.
And that sounds so natural now.
Does it?
Can you sing it like that?
I try.
Okay, so don't think so much about your technique and your breathing and
Yeah,
everything. Just see if
okay.
you can declaim
Yeah.
it with the extra notes.
Yeah.
And see how it goes.
Gerechter Gott, ach rechnest du, so werde ich zum Heil der Seelen die Tropfen Blut von Jesu zählen.
That was great. Was there a difference? You didn't?
I was so focusing on telling you what I'm saying that I kind of didn't listen to what I was doing.
I thought it was pretty good. And now I'm like even more curious. Why does like this very esoteric text that you're gonna have to find out more about this, that because it doesn't sound grim at all, right? It's joyful. It's like, I trust in God's judgment, and now we're gonna count up all the blood drops. Let's go. You know, it sounds like that, right? And you're doing this because there's oboe obligato, right? Her husband plays oboe, so there's something very joyful about this. So what? Now that we've sort of like decoupled the text from his writing, what insight can you have into like why does it keep going yada ba ba da? What is that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Sing it
I'm
again.
going visually about
Yeah,
it. So
sing it again and see if you can figure out like what is the message here, because it does sound very joyful.
yes, it is joyful.
Okay.
Gerechter Gott, rechnest du, so werde ich zum Heil der Seelen, die Tropfen Blut von Jesu zählen. So werde ich zum Heil der Seelen, die Tropfen Blut von Jesu zählen.
Good. Good. Any insight yet?
It's joyful, and I think it's because, like you said, I'm trusting in God, and I feel like it's like a dance. It's like dancing around and picking up blood. It's like,
See now I want you to dance around and sing it.
okay.
Veronica is a dancer by profession.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how the differences between like the continuity that you would have when you're dancing, and then it's sort of this internal dance that you have to do.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna make you dance around, but
Yeah.
like, how would you feel like moving?
It's like that might not be suiting, but I feel like in a beer tent when everybody is like going from one side to the other and being like very joyful. This is what kind of happens here.
Okay, sing it like that.
Yeah. Do you want
Yes.
to move?
Now you might not want to do that when you're actually performing the piece. But it does feel like it has these dance rhythms to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go again.
From the
Same place, yeah.
Gerechter Gott, ach rechnest du, so werde ich zum Heil der Seelen, die Tropfen Blut von Jesu zählen. So werde ich zum Heil der Seelen, die Tropfen Blut von Jesu zählen. Ach, rechne mir die Summe zu, ach, rechne mir die Summe zu. Ja, weil sie niemand kann ergründen, betrügt sie meine Schuld und Sünde, betrügt sie meine Schuld und Sünde. Sorry, I was making up pitches.
No,
That
that's
was-
okay,
that
because I was
was
asking you to
misunderstood.
dance a little bit. But you can see how, I thought it was a great idea to like teach a class that we'd all be talking about legato and the different legato challenges and different pieces. But one of the things that's emerging for me is just like how much gets solved if you have continuity of thought, right? And you just really let yourself go with that, and you have continuous expression. And then you can start asking like, well, what was Bach doing by writing all these crazy chromatic notes for me? And it starts to make a little bit more sense, but you have to invest yourself that way first. So thank you for offering to bring this. And
Thank you.
you know, I'm a little disappointed that your diction wasn't more a problem. But we'll have other opportunities to talk about that. And we'll have a great opportunity to talk about continuity of articulation now. Helene, thank you for patiently sitting here this whole time. Kathy, do you have this? Well, actually, you better give her yours.
Yeah.
Because I think, I
Key.
sent, yeah, I'm not sure what key. Okay, good.
You have an extra copy?
I hope this is the right key.
I hope this is the right key.
Maybe try different keys.
Are you familiar with this piece?
I wish she sent me this copy, it's a different key. Good thing you got this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
But is it the
decided.
right key?
All right, here we go.
Should it go back in the sleeves so she can turn pages?
No, it actually, it works.
It's okay?
Yay, I think so.
Yeah.
Good, double-sided and, here we go. Are there any cuts?
Any what? Cuts?
Or repeats or anything?
Yes, so I will sing through this. And find each other. Just got off of the train.
First name.
And then it goes back to,
What they find? Yeah.
just a minute.
Do you have a copy for yourself?
I have my lyrics.
So he goes all the way back to the.
No. So I'm just going back. Where is it?
Where they find each other?
Okay, it's a city of strangers. This is where we go back to. So after another group of people just got
Here.
off of the train.
Somebody wrote repeat.
Yes,
There we go.
it's a city of strangers.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah. And what's yours, Michelle?
as written.
Yeah. Oh, really? Whoa. All right.
That's why I wanted her to do it.
Whoa, okay. Oh,
I brought this. Do you want this?
Sure, I'll take that.
Your old notes.
All right, so tell us who you are and tell us
Okay,
what this is.
My name is Helene, and I'm going to be singing another 100 People from Company, Sondheim. I'm preparing a cabaret show. I'm a cabaret singer, so it's a little different than opera.
But I knew that she was preparing this as part of a program, and I thought it would be a really interesting challenge for our topic this evening.
This is
She'll just breeze right through it.
this is quick.
here we go, here we go.
Another 100 people just got off of the train and came up through the ground, while another 100 people just got off of the bus and are looking around. And another 100 people who got off of the plane and are looking at us, who got off of the train and the plane and the bus maybe yesterday. It's a city of strangers, some come to work, some to play. A city of strangers, some come to stare, some to stay. And every day, the ones who stay can find each other in the crowded streets and the garden park. Should I sing this a cappella by the rusty
No.
fountains?
Just get oriented. Where's a good place
Are
to
you-
start?
Are we in the B major section right now? Let's see.
Can we find each other in the crowded streets?
Yeah, right, that is?
Can we find each other in the crowded streets and the garden parks, by the rusty fountains and the dusty trees with the battered barks? And they walk together past the postered walls with the crude remarks. And they meet at parties through the friends of friends who they never know. Will you pick me up or do I meet you there, or shall we let it go? Did you get my message? 'Cause And another 100 people just got off of the train. It's a city of strangers. Some come to work, some to play. A city of strangers. Some come to stare, some to stay. And every day, the ones who stay and find each other in the crowded streets and the garden parks, by the rusty fountains and the dusty trees with the battered barbs. And they walk together past the posted walls with the crude remarks. And they meet at parties through the friends of friends who they never know. Will you pick me up or do I meet you there, or shall we let it go? Did you get my message? 'Cause I looked in vain. Can we see each other Tuesday if it doesn't rain? Look, I'll call you in the morning on my service and we'll explain. And another 100 people just got off of the train. And another 100 people just got off of the train. And another 100 people just got off of the train. And another 100 people just got off of the
Thank you both of you for able to do this. Yeah, just a piece like this to just like get up and like throw it together with a pianist you haven't worked with, and it's Sondheim and it's in a different key than we were looking at. So now we know where we are. And when you first told Kathy what tempo you wanted, you were going a little bit faster.
Okay.
So what would your tempo be if you could do it any way you wanted it to?
Wow. It's another 100 people just got off of the train and came up through the ground, while another 100 people just got off of the bus and are looking around. And another 100 people who got off of the plane and are looking at us, who got off of the train and the plane and the bus, maybe yesterday.
Good. Now, again, I'm at a disadvantage because she sounds so much better and more comfortable with this than last time we heard you do this. So let's just talk about how to do it even better, because any kind of patter song is going to be a serious legato challenge, because some vowels may line up better than others, and some consonants might just like trip right off your mouth more than others. What's the area where she starts? How does the melody begin at the very beginning? Okay, so another 100 people just got off of the train. So let me hear you go. Ah na 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 na.
Ah na 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 na.
No, that's gonna be easier if she doesn't use her jaw, right? So hang onto your jaw. Here you go. Ah na 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 na.
Na 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 na.
Ah na na with your tongue and not your jaw.
Ah na na na.
Ah na 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 na.
Ah na 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 na.
So you're gonna be able to say another faster if she does it a little bit less labored, and you just do it with your tongue. So I just want to kind of like go through and practice as a sort of an etude the different consonant sounds that she's got. The next one is my very favorite. The voiced TH. Let me hear you go. Ah, the.
Ah, the.
And for that you are going to have to close your jaw a little bit. But when she does that, it sounds to me like what she's altering the rate of phonation, right? And your chords can just keep buzzing. Ah, da, 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 da. Or they're going, ah, da, da, and sort of stopping the sound for the sake of it. So do that for me. Go, ah, da, da, da.
Ah, da, da, da.
And now it's not interrupting what your chords are doing. You feel the difference? Now we have an H. Go, ha, 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 ha.
Ha 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 ha.
Right, unvoiced fricatives. Your chords are going to stop vibrating when you've got an H or an F or an S. Let's just do this for fun. Go ah, fa, fa, fa. You're going to have Fs later.
Ah fa fa fa.
Right, and her breath is continuing to move. So the chords vibrate when we hear the vowel. They don't vibrate when we hear the F, but the breath keeps moving. And it's really important to just allow your airflow to be continuous even when you have these unvoiced fricative consonants or a voiced consonant, so that you still have continuity of breath and continuity of expression. Do the ah ha 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 ha.
Ha 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 ha.
Ah ba 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 ba's and people.
Ah ba 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 ba.
Another 100 people.
Another 100 people.
Now that got a little bit entangled with the jaw again, but it was a lot better. So hang on to your jaw. You're going to need it for some of these things, and now we're going to go ah na 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 na.
Ah na 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 na.
Ah la 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 la.
Ah va 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 va.
Ha 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 ha.
Ha 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 ha.
Ah da 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 da.
Ah da 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 da.
Ah pa 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 pa.
Ah pa 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 pa.
La 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 la.
La 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 la.
Another 100 people.
Another 100 people.
Very nice. Okay, now, am I suggesting that she do this for the entire song? Yes. I am. I would.
Good luck.
I would have to. Not every day, not the whole thing. But if you want to get to the point where this can just kind of like roll off your tongue so that you can think about other things. Because this really is a dance for your mouth. And it's the same thing if you're doing Gilbert and Sullivan, you know, I am the very model of a modern major general. The same kind, any kind of very pattery thing. You want to choreograph it very carefully because Sondheim did his job pretty well. I think he probably did a study of how consonants line up with, so that to make this easier, because he likes to do this to people a lot, as you know, because you've seen a lot of his music. Let's do this a little bit more. There's a J in just. Go ah ja 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 ja. That's going to require your jaw a little bit.
Ah ja 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 ja.
And let it just fall. Ah ja 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 ja.
Ah ja 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 ja.
Ah ga 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 ga.
Ah ga 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 ga.
Ah va 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 va.
Ah ba 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 ba.
Ah tra 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 tra.
Ah cha 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 cha.
Tra is in train. Ah tra 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 tra.
Ah tra 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 tra.
Just got off of the train.
Just got off of the train.
Another 100 people just got off of the train.
Another 100 people just got off of the train.
Brava.
Wow.
Very good. Okay. Good. Very good. A few more consonants. Ah ka 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 ka. For a K, you don't need your jaw.
Ah ka 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 ka.
It's a little bit labored. Ah ka 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 ka.
Ah ka 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 ka.
Much better. Ah ma 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 ma.
Ah ma 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 ma.
Now you have to go THR. Ah thra thra thra.
Ah thra thra thra.
Ooh through through through.
Ooh through through through.
She does that much better than I did. Good. Ah gra gra gra.
Ah gra gra gra.
Came up through the ground.
Came up through the ground.
Good. That's hard to do. Came up through the ground. You got to put the P next to the THR. Came up through the ground.
Came up through the ground.
Another 100 people just got off of the train and came up through the ground.
Another 100 people just got off of the train and came up through the ground.
Good. Let's start again. Let's start for Okay, so we're gonna take it. Another 100 people just got off of the train and came up through the ground. No, yeah.
Another 100 people just got off of the train and came up through the ground, while another 100 people just.
Is there really no rhythmic?
Well,
I don't know this arrangement, so.
I think you have to stay very on. What am I going to say?
Yeah, you don't follow her.
Da, 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 da. You have to know where the downbeats are, where the syncopations are, so that you stay with it.
I'm so used to Eric
Yeah.
having.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, just start it and if you can just give her a nice pulse and don't you lead.
Another 100 people just got off of the train and came up to the ground, while another 100 people just got off of the bus and are looking around, and another 100 people who got off of the plane and are looking at us, who got off of the train and the plane and the bus, maybe yesterday.
Very good. Okay, so you brought this in pretty good shape. But yeah, I can tell. But continue to really just sort of woodshed it, because That's the fun in singing a song like this, if you really just feel like it can just kind of like roll out of your mouth. And you're navigating all of these movements really, really well, but some of them are a little bit more labored than they need to be. And to whatever extent you're going na, 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 or the breath has to sort of stop and start to accommodate certain consonants, then that doesn't give you as much freedom to just sort of, dance with this vocally.
I understand.
So is there any particular phrase in this that's been giving you any trouble, or because it's really just the same thing all the way through?
I think it's not breathing, or knowing when to breathe, and
You could take more time to breathe in some places. You're jumping the rhythm a little bit. We talked about this a little. So for example, and that's you just like you get so excited because it's going that when he actually does give you a break, which sometimes does do, he's not that much of a sadist, right? So it's a city of strangers. Some come to work, some to play. A city of strangers. Some come to stare, some to state. Did I do that right?
Yeah.
I don't even know. Can we just start right there? And just wait until it's time to come in. So it's a
city of strangers. Some come
So
to
that's
work.
early,
That's early.
right? Well, was it right?
early?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a city of strangers.
Some come to work, some to play. A city of strangers. Some come to stare, some to stay. And every day.
And I think that was the only section. I think you've cut the counting down for most of them. You probably want to have the score in front of you rather than just the lyrics, because if you're going to be referring to something, because it's so complicated the way that the parts fit together.
Okay.
But yeah, it's in really good shape, Feline.
Thanks.
I didn't have as much to talk to you about as I thought I would. So thank you for being willing to demonstrate this.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else sing this? Do you guys sing this song? You should.
Yeah.
It's a good etude.
I wish I
It's a
had
good-
known it.
Hmm? Cool. So thank you all once again for joining me here.
Thank
Thank you, Dr. Miller, for playing this song.
you.
And all of you out there for watching, and Carnegie Hall for loaning us this beautiful space for our class.